At 2 a.m. over the Red Sea, flying at 25,000 feet, the pilot of an F-18E Super Hornet looked down at his target. This was a Houthi weapons storage facility buried beneath solid rock. He had just one opportunity to drop this 2,000-pound bomb through a narrow ventilation shaft. If he missed by even 15 feet, the HOUTHIS would mock the US Navy. But if he succeeded, he would set off the biggest chain reaction explosion the Red Sea had ever seen. There was no room for mistakes, and the time left was just 10 seconds. To grasp why the US found itself at this critical moment, we need to rewind to the Houthis' deadly error 4 weeks before this night. Subscribe and follow as we reveal what happened when America's patience finally ran out. This is the story of the most devastating strike in Red Sea history. The choke point. First, take a look at this map. Here you'll find the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Military strategists call this a choke point. Think of it as the single entrance to a shopping center parking lot during the holiday rush. Every day, 15% of the world's cargo must travel through this tight passage that's barely 20 miles across. Block it, and manufacturing plants go dark, store shelves go bare, and prices skyrocket in your local market. Having control over this strait is equivalent to pressing a blade against the throat of worldwide commerce. And who's gripping that blade? The Houthi rebels. Don't mistake them for your typical rebels carrying rifles. This is a force backed by Iran with the mission to attack cargo vessels in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, disrupting international shipping and pressuring the West to end its support for Israel in Gaza. They're equipped with a cheap but lethal arsenal: Shahed drones, ballistic missiles that can strike Israel, and most dangerously, mobile coastal radar stations that constantly relocate. To challenge the US, the Houthis developed an economic strategy based on asymmetric tactics. The approach is straightforward: send a $2,000 drone at a merchant vessel. To stop it, an American destroyer must launch a $2 million SM-2 missile. Their calculation was that if America spent enough money defending against these attacks, they'd eventually give up and pull back. They ridiculed America's restraint and believed America was scared. But they overlooked one critical fact: never wake up a sleeping predator. A dog that barks constantly is showing fear. A silent wolf is showing intention. Why the US waited? At this stage, you might wonder, with such overwhelming military capability, why didn't the US attack with maximum force right away? The explanation isn't about lacking determination. It's about an uncomfortable reality of modern warfare. Houthi targets never stay in one place. This is their advantage. If the US had struck immediately, the Houthis would have only lost their visible factories and supply depots. Meanwhile, their mobile missile systems and drone teams, which are their actual combat power, would scatter instantly, disappear into mountain hideouts, and wage endless guerrilla warfare. Fighting this way is like trying to kill a mosquito with a sledgehammer. So for weeks, while the Houthis celebrated hitting a few merchant ships, US satellites, drones, and signals intelligence quietly watched every path the Houthis traveled. They silently recorded each electronic signature whenever their radar systems activated. The US Navy was marking coordinates, preparing for the largest attack operation in decades. And tonight, that target list was finished. The command was issued. No more playing defense. The time had come to go on offense. The strike begins. At 2 a.m., the decisive moment arrived. The Red Sea night erupted with fire coming from 3 directions at once. This was a perfectly orchestrated display of top-tier weaponry. From the ocean's surface, the vertical launch system hatches on the destroyer USS Carney opened wide. Dozens of Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missiles screamed into the sky, leaving white smoke trails as they raced toward land. Below the water, an Ohio-class nuclear submarine, a huge underwater weapons platform, quietly fired another wave of Tomahawks from beneath the waves, adding to the heavy bombardment. And from high altitude came AGM-158 JASSM stealth cruise missiles launched from B-2 Spirit bombers. In total, 180 guided missiles and bombs were flying toward their destinations. The US objective was to eliminate the Houthis' ability to adapt and move. The answer was very straightforward, but also incredibly bold. How do you make 180 missiles launched from different locations all strike their targets at precisely the same moment? The supercomputers aboard the destroyers operated at maximum capacity, calculating flight trajectories. Some missiles needed to circle around to delay their arrival, while others had to accelerate to full speed to arrive on schedule. Time remaining, 60 seconds. The electronic blanket. Just as these missiles neared Yemeni airspace, an unexpected electronic barrier appeared. Far out at sea, EA-18G Growler electronic warfare planes simultaneously powered up their high-powered jamming equipment. They didn't enter the danger area. They stayed at safe distance and bombarded the Houthis' air defense frequencies with interference signals. The purpose was to blind them completely. If any Houthi radar tried to track the approaching Tomahawk missiles, their displays would show nothing but white static noise. Time remaining, 30 seconds. American missiles dove in like invisible phantoms, protected by an electronic shield, heading directly for the eyes and brain of the Houthi forces. Tomahawk missiles hit coastal fire control radar installations and communication towers. JASSM missiles penetrated reinforced long-range ballistic missile storage facilities. The detonation. When 10 seconds remained, there was a countdown. The sky suddenly exploded. The biggest strike since Operation Desert Storm hit immediately like a massive steel hammer falling all at once. This is the most devastating definition of time-on-target tactics. Death doesn't knock on doors one at a time, but kicks down every door in the same second. In that instant, the Yemeni coastline was ripped apart by hundreds of fireballs detonating simultaneously. Coastal radar stations became twisted metal before they could transmit warning messages. Ammunition storage sites created enormous mushroom clouds of flame that lit up distant mountain peaks. The earth trembled repeatedly, as if hit by a magnitude 7 earthquake. The Houthi air defense network wasn't defeated. It was completely erased in a storm of fire and force. They had no opportunity to return fire, not even a chance to comprehend what was occurring. The precision strike. But amid that chaotic destruction, there was one task still incomplete. A task requiring millimeter-level accuracy. It was the F-18E Super Hornet cutting through the skies over the Red Sea at 25,000 feet. While 180 cruise missiles were destroying area targets, this pilot was executing one critical mission. The Houthis' most valuable asset, a hardened ballistic missile storage facility deep within a mountain. This was where external blast fragmentation weapons couldn't penetrate. The weapons selected were two GBU-31 V-3B bombs. These have an ultra-hard alloy steel casing engineered to slice through 20 feet of reinforced concrete like a hot blade through butter before exploding. But penetration capability would be useless without accuracy. The pilot needed to release it so the bomb entered exactly through the ventilation opening. It was equivalent to standing on top of the Empire State Building and dropping a quarter into a coffee mug sitting on the sidewalk far below. The targeting computer locked on. The pilot's finger pushed the release switch. 2 tons of explosives and steel dropped from the aircraft's wing, falling down in silence. 10 seconds of breathless anticipation, and then a massive column of flame tore through the quiet darkness. The entire granite mountainside shook violently as if hit by a giant fist. The shock wave from the blast sent dust and debris hundreds of meters into the atmosphere, transforming the small ventilation opening into a flaming crater. This was a cook-off effect, a chain reaction of munitions explosions. Within 5 minutes, the entire command facility and strategic weapons stockpile that the Houthis had spent 5 years building was eliminated from existence. Over the radio, the pilot's calm voice broke through the static. "Shack, target eliminated." That attack was no accident. It was the pride of American military precision. The counterattack. Silence covered this battlefield, but it didn't last forever. From several scattered underground shelters, the Houthis, in desperation, launched one final counterattack. The radar systems of the American destroyers picked up a burst of signals rushing out, suicide drones and low-flying cruise missiles heading directly toward the merchant vessels and the American fleet. It was like a fighter who'd been knocked down but was still swinging his arms wildly to preserve whatever dignity remained. But the U.S. Navy had anticipated this moment. In the Combat Information Center of the USS Kearney, the captain stayed completely calm. He looked at the display showing the incoming drones and commanded, "Hold VLS, switch to the low-cost option." The US Navy altered the battle rules. They integrated two systems with crushing effectiveness. The AN/SLQ-32V6 system, nicknamed by sailors as Slick 32, was powered up to maximum strength. Rather than launching missiles, the ship transmitted invisible electromagnetic beams concentrated on the drone swarm. Think of it like you're playing an online video game and your opponent suddenly unplugs your internet connection. The final defense. This system fries the drone's delicate control circuits, severs their GPS link, and completely jams their navigation equipment. The front drones started to wobble like drunks, lost control, and crashed into the ocean before they could even spot their target. But what about drones programmed to fly using inertial navigation without GPS? The US employed a hammer, the 5-inch Mark 45 naval gun. The targeting system locked onto the threats, but instead of firing armor-piercing rounds, the naval cannon loaded a specialized ammunition type, airburst fragmentation shells. Sharp blasts echoed out. The shells launched and exploded directly in front of the drone formation, generating thousands of razor-sharp steel fragments traveling at supersonic velocity. The remaining Houthi drones flew into that wall of shrapnel and were shredded like tissue paper. Wings broke off, bodies disintegrated, tumbling into the water miles from the vessel. The outcome was catastrophic and quick. The Houthis' final 17 drones and missiles detonated in the atmosphere before they even identified where the defensive fire originated. Dawn was arriving over the Red Sea. While American destroyers kept sailing peacefully across the water as if nothing had occurred, on the Yemeni shoreline, thick black smoke continued rising from the wreckage of what had been the Houthis' pride. Last night, the world saw more than just an air operation. They saw a demonstration of modern military excellence where power serves strategy. The US Navy secured a dual victory that few people understood. First was the tactical triumph. Utilizing the total saturation approach, the US completely destroyed the enemy's ability to defend. When 180 targets, from radar systems and ammunition storage to command facilities, detonated simultaneously in 1 second, the HOUTHIS had no opportunity to adjust or gain lessons from the encounter. That was a large-scale elimination. Second, and more significantly, is the economic triumph. The HOUTHIS tried to drag the US into a financially exhausting conflict using $2,000 drones to counter $2 million missiles, but they failed completely. The US didn't focus on the drones, it focused on the HOUTHIS' costly, irreplaceable infrastructure network. And when counterattacking, the US employed electronic warfare and cheap naval cannons to shatter the enemy's offensive capability. The lesson for any nation that seeks to challenge freedom of navigation is straightforward and harsh. Never confuse the patience of the US Navy with weakness. We remained silent for 4 weeks, not because we feared your cheap weapons. We stayed quiet to watch, evaluate, and guarantee that when we decided to strike, it would be the final time you were able to strike back. The Red Sea has been secured. The cost for provocation has been completely paid. At 2 a.m., 1 pilot, 1 bomb, 1 ventilation shaft. At 2:05 a.m., the biggest weapons cache in Houthi history was gone. Mission accomplished. What do you think about this response? Will the HOUTHIS understand the lesson, or will they keep their destructive behavior? Drop your thoughts below on this video, and remember to like and subscribe for more exclusive military breakdowns from Navy Warzone.